think you know why I'm here, Joseph.
No, not really. You sort of forced your way in here?
Don't BS me here, Joseph! You've been making this city cry, and you know your crime.
I have no idea what you're talking about. A USB device?
Oh, not just a USB device. This thing here is the hottest new drug on the market, the universal mind drug. By inserting it into your arm, I shall prove your crime! The other arm! Forehead? Neck? Do you mind potentially removing a few more layers of clothing? Thank you for your time. Sorry. Hello there. This is the first of these kind of ramble blogs, personal thoughts and opinions. I'm gonna come up with a better idea for this. Yeah, I'm gonna be talking about some things I've watched recently in the past that I wanted to discuss. And so, yeah, well, you already have seen the video title, so you know what I'll be talking about. So let's get into a little bit of background. So, Kamen Rider Double was the first in a new era for the franchise. It would be the first to air in the 2010s and the beginning of a new era known as Heisei Phase 2 because... So, apparently, this was done because of toy sales. Toei more or less wanted to ensure that both franchises got their own time in the sun, so Kamen Rider was moved to September or third quarter for the premieres, while Sentai kept the January, February, or March premiere dates. And both series did not suffer or more or less succeed because of that. Yep. No issues whatsoever. But getting back on topic, if there's one way I can describe Double, it's simplicity done right. It doesn't break any conventions about the series, nor does it try to do anything unique. It goes right back to basics and sees what's great the series. Now, it's not a complete back to basics thing. There are still some elements of serialization that is seen in later series, but it's primarily episodic with serialized portions near the end of each episode. It's stuff that the series will must bring up later afterwards. And the simplicity, I think, is best represented in, like, the suits. It's generally, like, two colors, both on each side with a supplementary color. So, for example, the primary form, Cyclone Joker has green and yellow highlights on the left side and black and purple highlights on the other side. It is simple, but it really works. I know I've been using Simple a lot, but that's kind of what it is. The colors really work well on the base suits. The additional highlights work really well, and it just looks really amazing. Another fun fact, originally more or less it was supposed to incorporate red into the base suit because producers wanted red instead of green and black, but they were like, well, green and black is more or less the original colors, and we're trying to call back to that. So this is one of those cases where nostalgia kind of helped with that. As for other forms, it's dependent. I do think all of Joker's combinations with the other free suit types for the left side work really well because black is such a neutral color and it contrasts really well. The one suits I'm not particularly the fondest of are probably like certain trigger forms, like Luna Trigger. I think looks good. I think the cyan, blue and yellow work really well. I think Cyclone Trigger works well. The one I'm not too sure of is Heat Trigger. It's two bright colors that don't clash well together, and sometimes color contrast does really matter a lot to me. And then for Metal, I think they all look fine. They're not as good as Joker. As Joker plus whatever the left side is. But I do think they work really well. But I do think if I had to go with a favorite combination, it would have to be Fang Joker. The white and black mix really well to give nice contrast, and the addition of like much more sharp edges to represent the danger it now poses as the next form does really work. And then for the final form, Extreme. Extreme works really well because it adds the middle layer to further contrast the two, and like the way they more or less like slam it to the side and more or less kind of creates this turbine effect to reminisce of the original series. Like is a nice callback without being too overt about it. As far as the other suit for the secondary writer, Axel works, it's really good. I think more or less it works in a lot of the bike motif into it well enough, from the headlight eyes and the handles on the back, which look out of place, but when you take into mind he is both a rider and his bike, it makes sense in the tandem. I think this is one case where I prefer the upgraded form to the base form, mostly for personal preference. I do prefer the color blue to red, and its slimmed down form really helps it. As for like the main threats of the series, the designs they're more hit than miss in my opinion. Like say the Jewel Dopant or the primary threat Dopants, but then there's stuff like the T-Rex Dopant, but that's like, an early on Dopant, so it's also has a transformation, so it's kind of lazy, but at the same time, because it gets two forms, one where it's just a T-Rex head and one where it's a giant dinosaur, because dinosaurs are cool. Toei really wants you to buy dinosaurs. And that simplicity also carries over to the main plot. Now, it's not basic. It does have its twists and turns, but it's nothing majorly shocking. So, in the windy city of Futo, which is Japan's answer to Chicago if it actually made use of its moniker, a new drug is more or less out on the streets in droves. Gaia memories, which more or less, when used with the proper implants, allows people to turn into monsters known as Dopants. The only people who are capable of standing against this new Dopant friend are the two detectives heading up the Narubi Detective Agency, Shotaro Hidari and Philip. They are soon joined by Akiko Narumi, the daughter of the late previous boss of the Detective Agency, who initially came to kick them out, but soon joins them in fighting against the Dopants. Ryu Terrier, who becomes the secondary writer, Kamen Rider Axel, who is in Futo to search for someone with a W memory, as they killed his parents and sister, and a wide variety of kooky people within the city to gather information from. Again, this is a very episodic series with serialization in between, as I've stated before. So this is a series that's more about the cast that we see throughout the show rather than just the overarching plot. And let's get to them. So, talking about Double Moss means talking about the two main leads together, Shotaro and Philip, because they very much are two parts of the same coin. One's the emotional, adorable goofball who tries to play this hard-boiled detective but kind of fails miserably, and the other is the more intellectual, emotionless, ever curious like a child and more or less doing weird things. But they do come together to I'd have to say like maybe Santa-chan or maybe Watcher Man, just for the things they get into. The two police officers that the group more or less interacts with a lot. Mikio and Shun do get their moments in the sun as well. Well, especially during like the Jewel Dopant arc, to maybe remember them a lot for what they were able to do. As for villains. I really did like the Sonozaki, or the museum as they more or less go by, like Ryubei. Yeah, Ryubei may not do too terribly much as a villain, leaving it more to his daughters and the people who are dealing out the memories. But whenever he is on screen, he gives the impression and the feel of a main villain who you do not want to screw with. With even when he busts out the terror memory, you know it is serious and more or less the situation is dire. Psycho, more or less. I also gotta remember Psycho because, well, one, she's not Psycho, but more or less she's kind of a Black Widow, because all three arcs are best defined by more or less who she is dating or more or less with. So the first arc I define as the Nazca or pseudo arc, because she more or less marries him at the beginning of the arc, and more or less that arc sort of ends when she offs him because he's more or less going against him. Following that would be the Weber arc, where she starts to bunk up with Shinkara Isaka, who is also the main enemy of Ryu, and more or less that lasts until he's killed, and more or less that's where she really starts to get the idea to go against her father and take over things for herself. And then the final arc is propagated by more or less the arrival of Foundation X and Junkazu, who exists. He's threatening, but he doesn't really have much of a character, and he's probably the least memorable of Psycho's suitors. But she definitely has the Black Widow angled down throughout most of it. Most of the series, and it is shown that she is not as smart as she's actor, and she does end up kind of being hoisted down so her younger sister Bakana can more or less take hold as main villain. And that is probably the most interesting story this show has. The tragedy of Wakana as she goes from this peppy idol who wants nothing to do with her family's business to being dragged into it and forcibly corrupted into being the new second in command for the family. It's honestly sad seeing how she started and how she tragically ends up. In terms of more or less the main generals, Pseudo has like the noble demon element going for him, and that more or less he is shown to be on the villain side, but once he realizes what they're turning the kids on, that they're turning kids with the Gaia memories, he more or less is like, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. I am good. Unfortunately, that gets him killed, and I would have liked to see more or less a little more of him on the quote-unquote good side. Isaka would probably be my favorite, general. He's so devoid of any redeemable factors. He's a complete sociopath, willing to commit whatever atrocity he wants to gain more power, and it just makes whenever the heroes beat him down to size all the more enjoyable, to say the least. Outside of that, of course, I stated that June's probably the least interesting of the main villains. Oh yeah, there's the cat. I do like the cat. It is funny sometimes to see the cat, especially since he does become a Delpont. Yeah, this series goes some weird places. I would say more. So this series more or less is going to live and die by more or less that's what you think of the episodes and how many you do because of its episodic nature. And I do feel like there's a lot. I like the Invisible Bulldog part arc. That was really solid. It more or less showed development between the two heroes. The one where they enter a singing contest to oust a scene who was actually pretty terrible was pretty hilarious. Any ones I want to bring up without spoilers? The introduction trial, that was really great, a fine way to end the story and arc, even if I still think that more or less it leaves Rio with not much to do. In terms of stuff I didn't like, it's only really one major episode. It's the last. So, spoilers down here, or up here, since there's more headspace than anything else. So, Double's final arc more or less ends with, shocker, Philip more or less dying because of his connection to the Earth and more or less what it represents. And the epilogue shows a time skip where Shotaro has basically been on his own solving cases, but still hasn't gotten over Philip's departure, which he's had to tell others is he's off elsewhere. It's surprisingly a touching at times and dramatic episode with what it tackles. And then the ending, where Philip comes back. He just comes back because the rest of his family, who, spoiler again, he turns out to be a member of the Sonozaki family, more or less give up their essence to allow him to live again. And they henchman to beat the last Dopun in the story, the end. I don't hate the fact that he comes back. I just wish it was not fully alive and maybe in a corporal form, like a ghost, or within the actual memory. I think bringing him back completely undoes all of the drama and weight of his final actions in a lot of ways. I do think more or less him his ghost would have more or less ticked some people off still, but it wouldn't have been as bad as just, hey, I'm back, the family helped me. So, I would say this is actually one of the best ways to get into tokus and Kamen Rider in general. It's the best mix of comedy, action, drama without feeling like... It's hard to more or less say, but I feel like it's the most breezy watch. It doesn't have very many ties back to other series, with one obvious exception. It's light enough with dark enough elements to get people interested, and I feel like the mysteries it presents are solid. If you are looking to get into Toku, this is what I would recommend you start with. It is really solid in that way. So, that's that. I guess click the button down below to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications when I upload anything else, and push over there for any other videos I upload. See you later.